You know, we're going live right now.
Too domestic.
Good night, everyone.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Everybody has their volumes down, their
Oh no,
phones turned off.
of course not. Forgot that.
Ah,
How is everyone doing tonight?
We are doing.
Okay, that's nice.
Y'all ready for this heated topic?
I am.
I
It's
have a
not
lot
heated
of
for
I got
me.
some notes down.
good. I have some questions, but
Oh my.
oh yeah, so you better be real because I have some questions. I have a lot of questions too.
Oh.
I just wanted to before we and Louie's gonna join us a little later. I just wanted to let everybody know that we have on tonight, we have Karita and we have Shelly with us. And before we start, I kind of want you ladies to tell everyone um, what you do.
I live.
That's good because there's a lot of Walking Dead, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. So I live, but I'm the crisis counselor for the Women's Coalition on St. Croix, which is a victim advocacy agency. A mentor with a mentorship program. I do life coaching. I do support groups for caregivers, DV victims, and I've been working in victim advocacy for more years than I care to admit, honestly, because it means that the problem's not going away, and so because the problem's not going away, I still have a job, and I'm really trying to work myself out of this job so that I can do the other jobs. So yeah, so that's what I do. But mostly, I just be me all the time because I'm really not qualified to be anybody else. So I try my best every day to be me, know me, and love me, and that's my most important job.
exactly. That's excellent. How about you, Karita?
Well, I'm a director at a community center here in DC. So I am a educator and trainer by trade. A community advocate from the heart and the passion. And so that's why I'm here. I'm also a survivor of domestic violence. So that's also why I'm here as well.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Thank you, ladies. And of course, Pinky, you're here with us. And like I said, Louie
am
will
I
join
am
us.
I not always here with us? When I'm
I know, but
Pinky's not here with us.
I'm just saying in case there's any new viewers. Um,
Oh.
I'm not meaning anything by it.
I
Um,
I will be in and out because I will be trying to address as many questions and comments. So when I you see my eyes down, it's just because I read in comments and I'll be floating from page to page trying to figure it out. So I'm gonna just be a listener tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Shelly, you could have
Why
made that a
does
little
Shelly say that?
discreet, Shelly. Come on.
Girl, I'm just saying.
Uh,
Because I appreciate your questions and your perspective. So, I don't necessarily want you to be just a listener tonight. Your input is important.
okay, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. But that's okay. I know I talk a little bit too much. So let's dive in.
Yeah,
I want
darling.
I would like to ask you ladies to start where you are most passionate in your with your work. Like
Karina, you
which
want to go?
area? Because there's so many different areas of domestic violence.
Mhm.
Where you feel you're most passionate about, why, or the area that you feel is not getting addressed enough, like wherever you want to start.
Yeah, for me, I want to start with the youth only because my domestic violence experience came from my youth, right? In dating relationships, it wasn't back then. It wasn't so taught about amongst young people dating. It was always looked at. It was like a married couple where the husband abuses the wife, right? So sometimes, like in youth relationships, it doesn't show up in our brains as, oh yeah, this is domestic violence. Oh, oh my God, this is control. This is stalking. Okay, this is not healthy, right? And I know that, with young children of my own, I have a 15-year-old and a 22-year-old. I really focus on trying to like teach them the importance of having healthy friendships, right? Because if you learn how to have healthy friendships, you'll then have healthy relationships, and having healthy relationships within yourself also is like a big thing. Because like I just told my daughter just today, my 15-year-old, I said, Nelia, if you love yourself 100% completely, right, you are then teaching people how to love you. So if you don't love yourself, you don't need to be in no boyfriend girlfriend relationship. Not that she wants to, but we were on the subject matter because a lot of her friends are and stuff like that. And so she was just asking questions. And so I just took it a step further and was like, you know what? You need to have a healthy relationship within yourself so that you can have healthy friendships and healthy relationships in the future. And so like youth is really big for me. Like right now, my community center, we're getting ready to launch our advisory council here in Southwest DC. And this is some of the subject matters that we're going to address with dating relationships 101 with the youth, so that they can then go to their peers and like, well, we learned this in the workshop, and girl, he's being controlling, red flag, right? Or boy, she should not be putting her hands on you, because that is domestic violence. You know what I'm saying? I think sometimes we have to really teach society like it goes both ways. Everybody should keep their hands to themselves. It's not a man violent issue, it's a human violent issue.
Excellent.
Yeah.
How about you, Shelley?
The part that I'm most passionate about is ending it, right? My goal really is to end domestic violence, because then we can have healthy families, and if we have healthy families, then we can have a healthy community, and a lot of the problems that we have would disappear, right? So my focus really is towards ending it, and I do that by, when there are people that come into my office, I tend not to do labels, so I don't do the victim and the client thing so much. It's the people thing, which is why I was telling you all the other day that I have a problem with statistics, because there's just numbers, and every one of those people that is a number or a percentage is a person whose life has impacted many, many people. So the numbers are always wrong anyway. It's a lot larger than it always is, and so I try my best with the people that come to see me, whether it be in the mentorship program or at the coalition or in any other support group that I do, for them to find themselves first, right? One of the things about domestic violence that I dislike, especially with emotional, psychological, spiritual abuse, financial control, that kind of stuff, the stuff that does not have outward scars, is that people lose who they are as people. And so my approach is always to help them to see themselves and the best version of themselves. Many times they're not aware of it. And so because they're not aware that they're actually existing, what happens is anything that happens to them becomes something that they think that they deserve, even subconsciously. Because even from children, may not feel that they were given any credibility as a person. So if I could get them back to realizing that they are people, seeing the best version of themselves, then they become aware of when something is uncomfortable. And if they're aware that something is uncomfortable or something is not right, then it gives them reason to leave, right? What would be an unhealthy or an abusive relationship. And so once that happens, then it ends. And that is my goal. And so therefore that's my approach. And that's what I'm most passionate about.
Cool. When I did the heading, for this, I said domestic violence is not only physical, because I think a lot of times, and I had put up a question in the group about financial abuse, but a lot of times, like you said, we concentrate on the physical because we can see the outward scars, right? But a lot of times, there's a lot of things that happen prior to the physical. And so, can you explain to people, because I think like people hear these terms, but what does domestic violence really encompass? I mean, not like
Everything.
everything, but because like when people hear, even like one time, and you know, when we had one of our meetings, and we brought up, and we're talking about spiritual abuse. I was like, spiritual abuse? What is that? You know what I'm saying? So can you kind of like touch base on when you hear spiritual or financial or emotional or psychological abuse, what does that look like?
Karita, you going or you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, well, I was jotting down some notes earlier today, and so like when we think of abuse, there's like a whole laundry list of different types of abuse. We have physical, we have emotional / verbal, we have sexual abuse, we have financial abuse, digital abuse, and also stalking. So like folks need to understand that there's just not one type that you were talking about before. Like when I read digital, I'm like, wow, why didn't I think of that? I never, you know, and I know there's people who there's like a blackmail porn kind of term
Revenge porn.
where they hack into people's photos, and then they disperse it throughout social media to like shame and stuff like that. And so I was like, wow, that was really alarming for me. But like, domestic violence is really just control and power over one partner, that where one partner is having these behaviors, and they're just trying to, their whole purpose is to just have complete power and control over that person. And so like with financial abuse, they're going to make sure that their wife is not working. Like if she's a stay-at-home mom, they're going to put her on allowance or really scrutinize the budget. If it's a stay-at-home dad, the wife may, manipulate him and verbally taunt him as to like, I'm the breadwinner here. I make all the money. What do you do? And so that affects, mentally his
self-esteem,
his self-esteem, like his sense of manhood and stuff like that. And so once she's able to manipulate him into thinking that he's less than someone, then she has that complete control.
But there's that other side of financial abuse that I see amongst maybe housewives or just wives controlling their husband's money. They're the breadwinner, and the husband actually have no say in how the money is spent.
Right.
And when the husband do want to do certain things, he has to ask permission. And like you said, power and control, the ridicule and the put down and the criticism, like, I want to buy a football jersey. Like, no, that's not a part of whatever, that's a stupid way to spend money, or, we need it for whatever. But that is something that I've also noticed where men are being abused, but they are the breadwinners and they have no control. And they actually gave that control over because it's for the sake of peace, I guess. I don't know. Maybe you all could address that.
Usually, domestic violence usually incurs, like I think Debbie was making mention of it before. Physical abuse is the last abuse that comes. Right? Literally, like everything else has happened long before it gets to somebody laying their hands on you. Right? And so when it's gotten to the point that you've gotten hit, everything else has happened already. Right? The reason why you got hit is because nothing else was working. Right? And so in order for them to make sure that they get the control that they want, they have to now do something more than tell you you're stupid, tell you can't talk to this person, isolate you from everybody else, rape you in the night and tell you that, that's your job, you're supposed to do that, beat you up, verbally and in front of your friends talk bad to you, gaslight you, make other people make you believe that you're crazy, and then make other people believe that you're crazy. And because your behaviors, because you start to doubt yourself, then they start to convince other people, and then you start to play into it because now you don't know what's going on. And so you start to play in your own demise because you start to blame yourself, all because you've lost yourself, right? And so when it actually gets to the physical, and let me clarify, the physical hitting abuse, because sexual abuse is also physical abuse, but nobody's going to be up in your vagina, right? So they're not going to see it, right? But that's also physical abuse, because physically you get damaged. Because if you get raped and you get sodomized, or they use an object, because and that's what happens. And because the regular stuff doesn't work, the way to continue to instill the fear is to do something worse every time.
Right.
Right. And then it gets to the honeymoon stage, because domestic violence works in a cycle. Right. There's going to be the honeymoon phase, which is when, everybody's all lovey and the representative is there. And so this is the person you want to get into a relationship with, because they're absolutely everything that you ever wanted in your life. Right. They've had the conversation with you. And a lot of people who are already hurt, because domestic violence does not start in intimate partner relationships. They start at home, right? Children get verbally abused. They see domestic violence in the house. And so that becomes the norm to them, right? So moving forward, they get into a relationship. Somebody call me stupid. I don't see a problem with that. My mother called me stupid. My father called me stupid. My brother them that call me stupid. My sisters call me
But
stupid.
but not only that, society teach us. We said we met the statement: sticks and stones could break my bones, but words can't hurt me.
Yeah, but
If that's not the most wrongest in the wall statement, I don't know. And it just tears me to hear it. But
it's true.
Society teaches that also. Oh, you could say whatever you want. And we believe that, right? We truly believe that you could say whatever you want about me. It's what I feel about myself. Yes, it is what you feel about yourself. But if you constantly sit in a situation where you're saturated and bombarded with a bunch of negative things about yourself, you're going to eventually believe some of that stuff. So to me, a part of preventing or a part of ending it is a part of cutting it off right away. You don't have anything decent to say about me? Well, this is going to end this relationship, whatever it may be. Because we also see abuse in the form of husband, wife, and blah, blah, blah. Domestic, I guess, because, But we also experience these things. It starts on the playground. It starts with when your friend or the bully or whatever. And when I was growing up, parents would come to the bus stop after other children. We were afraid of them children, right? This is where abuse actually starts. Me saying parents come into the bus stop or, to tell the kids, I don't need to behave like this. Parents is coming to tell their children, hit she because she do something. This is the environment we grow up in. So then we get married or we get in relationships. They don't even be marriage yet. It's in relationships because it's relationships. The marriage to me is like what you saying, Shelly, it's the physical, right? That's like the end. But we've been in abuse all along.
All the time, right?
Like Corita said, not even realizing that we being abused here.
Right, exactly. And that happens a lot because, most people, and we don't think until you come to the place where you start to be yourself and, get to know yourself as a person. We have been so programmed to accept people telling us negative things about us. And, so, when you're 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, you have no place to go. Right? And so you're going to get bombarded and you can't leave. You know what I mean? And child abuse, which it's because the same things that happen in an intimate partner relationship happens with parents and children. A lot of parents are abusers and won't admit it. They would say that that's disciplining the child, right? And I'm not even talking about the beat them story. We haven't gotten to that yet. But they're going to tell them, you so stupid, or you just like your father. Why you gotta be so dumb? You know what I mean? How come you always doing something like that? No matter how many times I talk to you, you don't listen to me. You just can't hear nothing. And it's just like Pinky said. If I keep hearing that, after a while, I don't believe I could hear anything. So I'm gonna act like I can't hear anything.
Yeah.
And then because I'm acting up, because that's what you told me, now you're gonna beat me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I'm doing exactly what you said now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing exactly what you said. I'm not going to amount to anything. I can't do nothing right. I so stupid. I'd act like me ain't got no good sense. And so when I start to act like me ain't got no good sense, then you vex. But you just told me that. Right? And so I've internalized that. And so, you know, I don't get to undo a lot of the brainwashing until I become much older, unfortunately. But by this time, I'm a grown person getting in relationships with somebody else, and they're going to tell me, man, you ain't good for nothing. Ain't nobody going to want you. Well, it sounds very similar to I ain't going to amount to nothing, right? So what are you going to do? Well, okay, that's true. So, you know, okay, fine. I don't have a problem with that. But you want me because you here, so I'm going to accept what you give me. And there it begins. Just
And
like that.
you know what else complicates things is the sex abuse. Because if you're in an intimate relationship with your husband or your boyfriend or girlfriend, you're having sexual relations, right? And so when that unfortunate event happens within your relationship where they have sex with you without your consent, or force you to perform sexual acts without your consent, it kind of makes the victim feel like, well, that's my husband, or well, that's my partner. You know what I'm saying? How am I supposed to report this? Because in
But when you're married,
societal norms, that's what happens in relationships. Or
and when you're married and you're a part of the church, they tell you that's your responsibility.
submit.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So you don't even have a proper, who do you go to? Who do you complain to? You know?
And I follow these young men from Africa. I think they're from Ghana, on TikTok. And so they have a podcast. And this week he was talking about how he was sexually abused as a kid by a family member, right? And how conflicting it was for him because, first of all, this was his first like sexual experience. So he didn't know what was going on. He didn't understand why his private part was hardened. You know, that's how, you know, he was like, he didn't know what was going on. He was completely confused. And so what that abuser did was manipulate him in thinking, well, you got aroused, so that meant you wanted it. And so he never really said anything to his parents about what happened, and his abuse continued and continued until he realized, like, wait, this is not supposed to happen. This is not normal. And that's when he went to his parents and said, hey, this is what's happening. And then he realized, like, oh my God, I literally made myself suffer through all these unfortunate events of sexual abuse, not knowing that it really wasn't supposed to happen.
But, you know, and that's something that, especially with child victims of sexual assault, right? The body betrayal causes the most shame, right? Because they don't realize that your body is going to respond anyway because it's your body's job.
Right.
Your body is going to protect itself. You're not going to not get aroused. You're not going to not get wet. You're not going to not do any of those things because your body wants to minimize the amount of pain that you have. So your body is going to do whatever is going to make it easiest for you, right? And so as a child who doesn't understand that your body is going to do this because your body does not want you to die, because that's literally what your body is trying to do. It's trying to save you, right? But as a child, you don't understand that, you know, and then it's going to feel good in some ways, physically. Emotionally, you don't want it, but you can't do anything about it because your body really it's a body betrayal. I call it body betrayal. I'm sure there's some technical term, but I'm not good on the technical terms.
Yeah, and then sometimes we focus so much on the girls being sexually abused.
Right.
There are young boys who are also being sexually abused by these so-called quote-unquote aunties, which are like the mom's friends. that are being fondled and messed with at young ages.
Right.
Babysitters.
It's the babysitters, it's the lady in the church,
And
or
we're not going
the
to forget
deacon
the
in the
teachers,
church, right?
Right.
Sunday school
because
teachers.
the young boys having relationships with older women, Nikki put in there and it's statistics, but statistics is a reference point. We have to use
Right.
it.
Mhm.
It's 1 in 6 boys, and it's even higher in blacks,
Right.
right? 1 in 6. And it is higher in blacks, and it's even higher than that because
A lot of them
growing
not
up,
going to
I
report
know
it.
so many young boys who've been with these older women, and they think it's like the coolest thing
Mm-hmm.
when they was in, junior high, high school, and they dealt with, especially,
But the other thing to that is, and this is the sad thing about it. We defined our boys for a long time based on whether or not they could have sex. You know what I
right,
mean? We
right.
literally, if you had somebody and you had sex with that person, that made you a man. One of the reasons why I do not use the term manhood, but I use the word penis, I'll use the correct word, right? Is because I dislike the fact that somebody's penis defines whether or not they're a man.
Mm.
Right? And we don't even look at the fact that if I say your manhood and I refer to your penis and whether you can have sex or not as a manhood, if you're not using it all the time, it's going to make you feel like less of a man.
Mm.
Right. And there
Right?
are
So
parents
I've
that teach
set
their
them up,
children this. Yes. There are
which is
parents that
unfortunate.
encourage their children
Hold
into
it.
this
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So
from
the
young.
amount of brainwashing that has to be, it's like we have to unlearn a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We have to unlearn a lot of stuff. And that's a slave mentality, by the way. You know what I mean? That we kind of just took along with us because, it was safer or whatever it is. Everybody wants to be the mandingo, everybody wants to be the breeder. Right. And they talk about the mandingos and the breeders like they're a wonderful thing. They were the most sexually abused men among the slave trade, them and those that had to go through buck breaking, right?
And
And so,
and
but we
and the
don't talk about
women
it.
were the women we complain about our black women being sexualized.
Mm.
And we were very sexualized in slavery.
Mm-hmm.
We were used for sex in slavery, and that
Mm-hmm.
continue on until today.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But
There's
there's a
still,
lot of
there's still a
ways.
fetish. There's still a fetish about our black men and our black bodies.
Right. There
Right,
is.
Still a
A-
huge fetish.
right.
Like,
And it feeds in.
what's the guy for Star Wars who said, I think he's Nigerian, and he said that his ideal woman is a black woman. He comes from a black woman. He has black sisters, and the opposite, the other ethnic groups nearly had a conniption. Like, oh my God, he only wants to date and marry a black woman. Like, that's his choice. But they're just so upset that they can't like claim his black body. These other ethnic groups can't claim his black body. How dare he say he only wants to marry a black woman? How dare he say that? So there's still fetishes that go on about us. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I was talking to my daughter because I like to pick her brain. I like to see like what's going on in schools, and she says, "Oh, well, one girl just found out that she's pregnant." I'm like, Lord Jesus. And then she was like, she knows another girl. So as adults who have teen children, we need to learn these new terms. So the new term for someone who is sexually active, they call it body,
Body.
right? So she was saying that this young girl has bodied 15 people. I'm like, what? I
The
said,
body
how old
count.
is she? Because I know my daughter's only 15. So I'm like, how old is she? She's like 14. I said, so you mean to tell me
She
she's
been.
had sex with more people than she has been on this earth, right? And so she stopped and she's like, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Because they're
I
not
said,
taught to think about it
I
like
told her,
that.
I said, Nelia, that is not normal. Okay? Something had to happen to this young lady beforehand. that she felt that this is normal practice for her to be so promiscuous,
Sexually active,
right?
right.
If it's something that maybe the parents molded her, she's seen her mother just, have a revolving door of men come to the house, or she's been abused. And so it kind of opened up Nelia's mind, like, oh my God, I never thought of it that way. Yeah.
She's been abused, her parents, but we must always remember the impact that our culture, and when I say culture, social media, TV, this body count thing, I'm not here to tell anybody what choices to make.
No.
But when we continuously allow our body, like you said, to be a revolving door for men, that is just using our body, and we are allowing them to use our body, and we using their body, whatever we want to say about it. We have made these behaviors okay.
Yeah.
And we are suffering as a result of it.
And it feeds into a lot of the ways that you make decisions, because a lot of people have sex, right?
It's a natural thing.
Right. It is a natural thing.
When it's healthy, it's only when you're in a healthy relationship, but yeah.
Well, no, sex is the act, right? Sex is the act. Sex is the act without any emotional attachment. A penis goes into a vagina, or anything goes into any orifice based on the other person, right? Because there's different types of sex at this point in time. That's just the act. There's no emotion attached to it.
Right.
That's completely different than having intimate relationship. And if you're having the act and there's no emotion attached to it, you've been detached from emotion, which means emotional abuse has already happened. And so it no longer exists, because your defense mechanism is that I'm not going to feel, I'm going to allow my body to be biological, right? And a lot of times that is the offset of abuse. Domestic violence, whether it's from childhood, or you had a pretty decent childhood, and because you had a pretty decent childhood and you were very protective, you became naive to the fact that not everybody had the same lifestyle you did. So whereas you're thinking somebody tells you you're pretty, they mean it and they actually like you, but they're telling you they're pretty because the person told them they were pretty, they had sex with them and they got something. And so that's the effect, that's the point of view that they're coming from. Right. It's all because the emotions are void, and emotions become void because there has been abuse that has taken place. Usually mental, psychological, and emotional abuse has taken place. Verbal abuse usually doesn't play so much of a part because when it comes to, especially when it comes to sexual abuse, because your body betrays you a lot of times, they just know if they keep rubbing your leg, or they keep hugging you, or they keep touching you, or they keep brushing past you, because your body is going to respond to the friction, then all of a sudden, I don't really need to say anything, right? Because your body is responding. You not emotionally, you internally is going to be like, well, that feels kind of good. So the next time it happens, I'm not going to really say anything. I don't really like this person, but it kind of feels okay. And so maybe it's okay. And then it gets from one part to the next part. Now, mind you, all of this has happened void of any emotional connection, right? This is all a biological response to what's going on. And then the end result is, if my body is aroused and my body feels good and I don't have an attachment, and I learned that I don't have an attachment. The first time it was kind of painful, but the end result was because my body's aroused and they waited, because the grooming is a good thing that perpetrators do to make sure that you feel that you're wanting this as well. And then you have an orgasm and your body feels good now. You no longer feel the need to have an emotion attached to this. So sleeping with different people, the body count becomes very easy to do, because I don't have an emotional attachment. I just know that if I do this, this will be the end result, or this should be the end result. And when it's not the end result, well, I'm going to move on because I don't want you anymore, because you're not doing this thing at the end, right? This explosion at the end isn't happening. So I need to move on to the next thing. It works exactly the way domestic violence does, right? Because when you meet someone, the representative comes, they make you feel good. Nobody gets in a relationship when somebody hits them upside the head the first day. Right? If somebody slapped you day one, the likelihood of you being in a relationship with that person is zero, right? They're going to do all the nice things, say all the nice things. They're going to brush past your body. You know what I mean? I mean, do the domestic violence in relation to sexual abuse. They're going to brush past your body. The more they brush past your body, or they tell you you look nice, or you're so nice, I never thought I'd meet anybody like you. You're so wonderful. You're so this. And you're at a place where you aren't very familiar with yourself. You don't know what boundaries are because you think boundaries are cutting people off, not that it's a form of access that people have to you. Because that's not, we don't talk about boundaries. That's a taboo subject for some strange unknown reason. Yeah.
You're a prey to them. Like they already know where your
Mm-hmm.
weaknesses are. They study you to a certain extent that they know, okay, I can manipulate him or her in this aspect. Oh,
Right.
I can't mess with them in this act. That they know exactly, like what Shelly said. They know exactly the buttons. They know
But they don't. Their form of manipulation is around you, but it's also around them.
No. Wait, hold on. Their form of manipulation has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Right? And so, I mean, and a lot of people, I mean, okay, so I'm kind of weird. Well, I think I established that the first time, right, Debbie? I'm kind of weird, right? In terms of victims don't volunteer to be victims.
No.
There is nobody that volunteers to be a victim. I have never met a person that's volunteered to get hurt. People that get hurt are usually people who are very talkative about themselves. And we were taught, when somebody tells you you're nice, what do you like to do? We tell them all the things that we like to do, but do you know what we don't do? We don't ask them the same question. So they have all the information on us. We don't have any information on them.
Right.
And because we don't have any information on them, they already realize, because, I ask you what you like to do and you tell me all the things that you like to do, and then you smile and you giggle and all the rest of it, and you forgot to ask me what I like to do. Oh yeah, man, you easy.
Yeah, like that famous question when dating, like what do you want out of a relationship? Do you say, oh well, I love flowers, I love slow songs, I love to go out to eat, I like chocolate, whatever, instead of saying I want loyalty, right? I want X, Y, and Z. When you give them like tangible things that they know that they can, like, if they hurt your feelings, they can buy you a dozen red roses because that's your favorite flower, right? Or if I roughed her up or whatever the other night, let me go buy her favorite fragrance. So like so when people like ask stuff about you, tell them like qualities, not things, tangible things that you want, that you like in life. Give them qualities that you're looking for. And that's something that I learned in my adulthood. Like when I'm dating and someone asks me, so what do you want? I said, I want consistency. I want someone who I can respect, someone I can trust, someone who is respectful to not only myself but other people. It makes them have to have those kind of qualities. And even though sometimes there's some abusers that are really good, that are like, they're deacons in churches, they're attorneys, they're police officers, they're military officers, they hold these very dignified job statuses in communities. So you're like, oh my God, but he's so well in church. Like, how dare I accuse him of X, Y, and Z? Like, listen, lady or guy, right? If they are saying things to hurt you, they know that is a pressure point for you. They know that you grew up with a mom or a dad calling you names or calling you stupid. They know there's certain insecurities that you have about yourself, so that when they can verbalize that abuse towards you, it's like second nature. Like, you've been through it before, so it comes naturally. So you're like, oh my God, and then you start thinking like, well, maybe I am like that way.
But Debbie, go ahead. Sorry, Debbie, go ahead.
I was saying, piggybacking off of what Shelly was saying, that's why it's so important for us. as parents, as mentors, as aunts, uncles, when children are being raised, to really teach them to value themselves. Because I think at the end of the day, if you really teach self-worth and self-love, not only by telling them, but also by showing them,
yes,
when someone comes with ill intentions, you can see it quicker, because I remember Dr. Reynolds saying that you usually attract people who can see those things in you. You understand what I'm saying? Because if somebody sees that you don't play about you, and you don't play about your boundaries, and you don't play about your value, they're not going to waste the time, because they know that you're not going to be somebody that's easily manipulated. And we get into relationships from young. So if we're not teaching these things to our children from young, and like Shelley says, it's not just teaching them, but it's also showing them and being healthy in our relationships. Then even when we get to that point where you're in a relationship and someone's ill-treating you, if you haven't had that foundation, I mean, you're gonna get caught up, because I'm sure most people have been in some sort of abusive situation, right?
Everybody.
Whether we realized it or not, right? And like, again, when we think about domestic violence, a lot of times we're thinking about the end result, and we're thinking about older situations. But I mean, these things start from young, because yes, I have remembered hearing people talking to their little child and saying like some horrific things. And so if you're teaching them to devalue who they are, you're obviously subjecting them to one day being involved in some sort of abusive situation.
I wanted to comment on what Karita was saying in this dating wall. And this was where I had to learn these valuable lessons, where, because I still a talker, but I know I just said too much, but I've learned to be quiet now. Instead of telling them that I value this and that and that, I've learned to just listen and pay attention to people's behavior. I think Makubo Do or whatever put up a post the other day that said Mambaku. I gotta write it down so I can look at it. Mabaku, he put up this post about, I think it was here, I can't remember, about a woman who went on a date, and the man was talking about her weight, he was talking about all kind of stuff, and she said, and she tolerate this whole conversation. She said she won't go back. Was it Makubo? I can't remember. Makubo. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say in that is that this, right? A lot of these people, these abusers, I don't call them master manipulators. They have a mastery. They are in the first person. They've been doing it for quite some time. They have it down to the science, like you said. They know who to prey on. And a lot of times we could pay attention. That's why, for me, so Nikki put she had put in an earlier text, they got situations where husbands also abusing their wives by causing them to have multiple plastic surgeries. This is also a problem. It's a big problem. We don't see problems based on, the socioeconomic area you in. This is a big problem. We in a culture now where people say, oh, wear makeup, don't wear makeup, wear and I am very defensive on that, because I'm like, we telling people how to show up, and that is a part of the problem. When I there were one person and he telling me he don't like makeup, and the next one telling me he don't like makeup, and he like makeup, and he like red, and he don't like, we come into a problem. It don't have to be abusive, but it is things to pay attention to. To me, this is the red flags. Me, right. I just simply say, well, hey, if you don't like makeup, well, that's on you, because I'm gonna wear it. That way, we eliminating a problem right there. Yeah, like you say, you ain't gonna approach me because I too own where I got too much of an opinion, and I to a point right now in my life where I'm like, well, then it wasn't meant to be, and I don't even care at this point, because this is how you're gonna filter out you're gonna separate the wheat from the wheat from the chaff. You have to filter it out. People telling you how to look. I know of marriages where you can't wear this, you can't wear that, you is this, you calling people names. Like, these are all forms of abuse, and we do not see it because we're not getting physically hit. But it's like you said, when people are being controlled and not allowed to be themselves and express themselves in some form, whoever you may choose to be, spiritual. So me and a friend, we talk, he's one belief, I's another belief. I said, well, look, I love my Christ, and that's just it. I love my Christ. That's it. That's it. Nobody ain't getting me from my Christ. You believe what you want to believe. I'm going to believe what I want to believe, and that's it. It's not meant to be. I okay with that. We have people trying to dictate and control other people's lives in every aspect. Because you's my husband or my mate, you don't get to tell me every move I make. I don't like how you spending your money. Oh my God. But I've had the experience. So I signed that to say, Debbie was talking about the kids. The kids learned it from us. We cannot teach our children nothing we do not know ourselves.
Oh, God.
We cannot exhibit anything. We cannot exhibit anything that we do not know ourselves.
I don't think that's true, though. I don't think that's true. You know why? Because I think a lot of things that we do is choice. And again, this is why I'm always talking about living intentional. We just react. We don't stop and we don't think. And the reason why I say that is because I've used this example before. When my grandson was like a year and a half, 2 years, and something he was doing, I can't remember. And he was going to get beat. And I was like, do y'all realize like he's been on this planet for like 400 and something days? Like that's all the amount of days he's been on this planet. And everybody was like, what? Again, intentional. I was like, you have
to. But they couldn't have been intentional because they didn't know. You told them and you disrupted their thinking, and you introduced that concept to them, and then they heard it. They could have sat on there and think from here till tomorrow. It wasn't going to come to them because they didn't realize it. They didn't know it for themselves. That's why the village, that's why the community is so important in our healing. Because
but again,
iron sharpens iron.
Gina, you say because if your village isn't healthy, it doesn't matter.
Well, your village is whatever you make your village to be. You creating the village, right? What I'm saying is this. We live in, and Shelly and Farida, you'll talk about this. In abusive relationship, there is always isolation. There is not a community. In an abusive relationship, who's ever getting abused usually ain't telling nobody.
Right.
Because if they tell somebody, there's a possibility that it's going to stop.
Right.
Like, but not in our communities, right? The problem is, especially in our villages, everybody knew who the rapist was. Everybody knew who used to get beat. That was our village, and they let it happen and continue to let it happen. And no, nobody goes by Uncle Johnny because Uncle Johnny don't mess with everybody, but yet everybody sending their children to Uncle Johnny house, and that's the village, right?
And that's the village, and that's us broken.
But they're going to cover up for it, because if you start to say something, then they are going to isolate you. But
and that's what I'm saying. You cannot teach what you don't know, because all of them believed it was okay to go to Uncle Johnny.
No, they knew it wasn't okay to go to Uncle Johnny. Nobody wanted to hold Uncle Johnny accountable. And that's our problem. We don't want to be accountable for our own behaviors.
And that's actually one of the questions I wanted to ask is, why do you think so many of us turn a blind eye when we see things and we know what is going on? We don't show up. We act as though it's not happening. and we
My
don't
favorite,
say anything.
my pet peeve.
Basically, because it's happened to them. Like,
Bystander syndrome
and
sucks.
yeah, in my experience, when I was younger in my teenage years, and I was being physically abused, it was a learned behavior and a pattern from the men in that family, right? And he didn't know exactly. He knew what he was doing to me was wrong. Yeah, I'm sure he knew that, right? But it was a pattern that he learned from the men in his family. And I remember one time it came to a very explosive situation, and I was just like, so and so saw it happen, right? And when so and so was questioned, they were like, I ain't see it. I ain't see it. I ain't see it. And then that's when I knew that it's bigger than just physical domestic violence, right? It is
Community
turning a
grooming.
blind eye and
Mm.
protecting your own. And I knew that I had absolutely no value. Luckily for me, I had an outlet of I can get on an American airline flight one way to Raleigh, North Carolina to be a freshman at St. Augustine's College, and I'll be out of sight, out of mind, and I will be good, right? And that's what was my saving grace. And like for me, I found myself again at 23 in a verbally abusive relationship. And I had no idea that I was in a verbally abusive relationship. You know what I'm saying? Until it really started festering, like, oh my God, when I started having no self-worth or valuing myself. Like one of the commenters today said, I think her name is Tracy, said that, adults we don't value ourselves. So like with the verbal abuse constantly happening about calling me fat, or you need to lose this amount of weight, you need to go to the gym. And when I didn't feel like going to the gym, it was like a parade of like, oh, you this, you that, you this. See, that's why you look this way, that way. And so they knew that was a sensitive or insecure area of, my thinking about myself. So they were able to manipulate and use that against me. Right. So it's just like, no matter what it is, they know how to like pray you, they know how to tap in on you. We have to like do a better job with choosing our villages. Like Shelby said, everybody, cousin George was part of the village. Not for me. When I had my kids, I made sure that I chose people in my life that I knew that I could trust with my whole heart, right? That if I was going to ever be harmed, that they would throw themselves in front of that truck to save my life, right? And so those people became my village for my kids. And a lot of people looked at me like I was crazy. Like, why are you choosing older people? Because that was my safety, that was my safety. I knew that my kids were going to be good. Their godparents are awesome people. I knew if God calls me home and my mom isn't here, or my sisters aren't here, or my brothers aren't here to take care of my kids, their godparents will have them wholeheartedly, and I can rest in peace, right? And so like we have to just make better. Well, I don't want to victim blame, because I don't blame myself, but I do think that at some point we have to find the value in our own selves, and we have to teach our children the same value, because once they know what their value is, someone call them stupid. No, you stupid. Who you talking to? And that person know, like, okay, that child, you can't pick into their brain. If someone knock you and you knock them back, like, I'm gonna tell you, my dad already told me, if anybody knock me, I knock you back. Okay, you know what? They're not, like, they're just not the one to mess with.
There is that abuser, us as abuser, but abusees, right? Who was abused. Sometimes we protect those that abuse us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why sometimes the village that we choose is a corrupt village, because we surround ourselves with people who ain't gonna stand up to the abuser. My mother went after my husband one time because she thought he was hitting me, just from the song, the argument. And my mother tell me, if you ever touch my daughter, I will break your hand. And he tell the story till the day he died, and he never, because he know my mother wasn't gonna play. But it wasn't just my mother wasn't gonna play. My sister, that twin there, mine, she'll threaten any man, Shinkei, because he was 6 foot and she was 5'5" and she going up against it, she didn't care. And there was a lot of times where I used to be like, Nikki, you ain't gotta be like that. Like, I would hide things from my sister because I know if my sister knows certain things, she going after them. It don't matter who it is. We have to reach to that place where we know if I wake up and I'm an abused person and I wake up like most abused people, we feel alone. We feel like there ain't nobody who hearing our cry. There is no place for us to go, and we are stuck. That is the worst feeling to feel. There is some place to go. There is somebody who cares, and there is somebody who gonna stand up for you. Trust me, if you out there hearing my voice. Everybody ain't gonna support this. If you're a child, if you're an adult, you get sexually molested, and everybody know that Uncle Joe is a damn. Find somebody and keep looking. Do not stop telling your story. Find a person that you feel you could trust and tell them your story. The worst thing we could do is feel like nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
The second worst thing we could feel is that we have no place to go. That if we feel that way, we ain't going nowhere, and we're gonna stay in that situation indefinitely. Welcome, Janos. I see you got a good background. Look at he posing in the background, you know.
What? Yo, listen, I had quite the eventful. Anyway, yo, I left the office, rushed in, had to do some stuff. Long story short, I left the office open, had to go back, locked the office. It's just a long story. You go to the parents. Anyway, I'm here. I have everybody.
I like the background. I like the background.
You can. It's just pitch black and outside.
Good. I like it.
My room is on us. Anyway, thank you.
But Pinky, I wanna back you up on what you just said about like being able to tell somebody. You know what I'm saying? We also need to educate them in a way that they know that they need to make a plan. Far too often, a lot of victims see that when they leave, life is so much harder.
Right.
Than if they stay. And I think sometimes some victims feel like if I only don't do this, this won't happen.
Mm-hmm.
If I just love them more, this won't happen. And we need to really get through to our community to understand that you need to be as selfish as you can at this moment right now.
Right.
You need to make a plan. You need to tell somebody that you trust of this plan, and you need to, when you know this is it, you're gonna know when this is it, right? You need to activate that plan. You know what I'm saying? And I just wanted to let the viewers know that the hotline number for domestic violence is 1-800-799-7233. And if you don't wanna call but you wanna text, you can text all caps start to 88788. If you need help putting a plan together, there's hotlines available. There's people on the hotlines available to help you. My mom has done several stuff with the domestic, the Women's Coalition Home in the Virgin Islands. So they're an excellent resource. They have excellent people there to help women in our community. So, let's start making a plan, men and women, children, whomever is being abused, make a plan, say something.
Corita, send that through to Eleni. Corita, send that through to Eleni. So I can.
Wait, she could type it in the thing, right? Can you in the comments?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to add something.
I want to post it on Eleni also.
I want to add something. I know you guys are coming in late, so it's like Monday morning quarterbacking for me at this point, and I do apologize for that. And I know we've discussed this on, again, this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and definitely this show is most definitely appropriate, and we did this last year also. One thing I want to say, how do individuals? I mean, how is it that they stay in a situation when they know they're being abused? At what point? And we've talked about this, and I just want to touch that, and I'm sure you guys have. I'm not sure. But what makes them stay, and when do they, and why do they decide to say, you know what, this is enough? Like, what makes them stay in a situation where they're being abused, and not just physical abuse? And I know there are many things people gonna say financial, they have kids and all that stuff. But especially in an abusive relationship, why do people stay? And again, I come in late, so.
Why do people stay in an abusive relationship? Well, because usually they've lost themselves within the relationship and they don't know how to get out, and better the evil they know than the good they don't know.
And how do
It
you see the
becomes
signs other than physical signs? How do you see the signs from someone? How can you tell? And Shelley, this is a question for you. How can you tell when someone's actually being abused?
how can I
Even
tell
if
when somebody,
and even if you
even if
don't
they,
know this individual, you don't know this person, how can you detect that?
if they're
Is it
around
detectable?
if they're around their abuser, it kind of shines bright like a flashlight.
Is that right?
If yeah, because every time their abuser moves, they move, right? So it's very very obvious when they're in an abusive relationship. Um, if they're next to their abuser. If they're not next to their abuser, their whole conversation is centered around everything except them. That's how you know, right? They're going to talk about, and you ask them how they're doing, they're going to tell you how the dog ain't doing well, the children them sick, everything except them as a person. They don't exist, and that's how you know there's especially emotional and psychological abuse going on because they do not exist. So they can't talk about themselves. You ask them how they're doing, they're going to say maybe okay, all right, and move on to something else, right? And it's not always, some people was like, well, I don't know you, I don't trust you. But if this is something that somebody that you're around, if you ask them questions when it has to do with themselves, they really cannot answer, right?
Wow.
Because the key to having a person that's being abused remain in a situation where they're being abused is to continue to make them lose sense of themselves.
Right.
If you have no self-esteem and you have no self-worth, you have no self-awareness, then you become a reflection of the person that you are with. And so your only identification
Is with
is with
them.
the person, right? And if I only identify with this person, like I know exactly what they want to eat, I know exactly where they want to go. You ask me a question, they answer. If they're around their abusers, something's going on. That may be trafficking as well, but it's victimization, right?
Right.
There's a lot of that happens, and that's how you can tell. For me, I know one, my job sucks in a lot of ways. Well, no, my job sucks, period. But it gives
Wow.
me the opportunity to help, period, because I listen to people's problems all day, right? Um, and I do it because I prefer to listen to people's problems all day than go to people's funerals all day. You know what I mean?
But that's a lot of
Um,
weight to carry. We've talked about it also. How do you release that? What does that look
um,
like?
I realize that it's not personal to me. It gives me
But you
information.
take, yeah, but you don't take it personal, right? I mean,
I
how do
can take it
how do
personal. If
you
I take it
you
personal, I
receive all
can't
this
help them.
pain? You receive all this information that's just it's a heavy weight. How do you retain, or how do you again release, or how do you differentiate? You know what? I could be here for you, but I can't be, like how does that work?
Well, I am fully aware that my last name is Gums, not God,
Okay,
right?
perfect.
I'm fully aware of that. I know that I can only offer people advice. I can only be a listening ear. I can sympathize. I can empathize with them, but I cannot change anybody. And I'm fully aware of that. I can
Because
give them information for them to be able to change themselves, but I
right,
cannot change anybody because
because
my last name is Gums, not God.
at the end of the
And
day,
God is not gonna change us either unless we ask him to. So
But what
at the
one
end
of
of the day, who counsels the counselors?
Well, the counselors that need counseling, I mean, like, we all would have somebody that we can talk to. You know what I mean?
Right.
I tend to literally know, right? It's conscious for me every day. I can do only what I can do and to where they're ready to do what they can do, right? I don't expect more from anybody than they can do.
Right.
Even though I would like them to be out of a situation, in the 30 years that I've worked with the agency, I've never told anybody to leave a relationship. Right? I just want them to be in a position where they're not hurting. They have to choose to leave.
Right.
Because I realize that if I tell them to leave, then I become responsible for their leaving. They're not going home with me.
And they
You know
hold
what I
that
mean?
against you too, right?
Right. But I'm not going to do that anyway because I'm seeing you in my office for an hour or an hour and a half. I don't know what the other 23 and a half hours of your
Excuse me.
life looks like.
I got bugs here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
But
I
let
can't
me
do
let
that.
me
But
let me ask a question, because again, in fighting this whole thing, of course, let's say the person is being abused. How can we, again, as the bystander, as the community, if we know something, help them do something? Because I know, like when our first year of Eleni, we had Kanuma on, and one of the things
Support.
they said that stuck with me is that it usually takes an abuse, a victim, 7 times.
7 times, exactly.
Right? But a lot of times it's out of fear of the unknown, right? And so, but there's people around them that know that something is not right, right?
Mhm.
How do we, as
The outsiders,
of that relationship or that situation,
I can only
do something to offer either an ear to that person, not necessarily, like you said, tell them to leave, but what should we as the bystanders do?
you can 2 things. You can support them, and the support means that even though they stay
What
in
does that support look like?
situation, that you position yourself to be that emotional, mental, and spiritual support, because the last thing they need is number 2, judgment, right? Because there's a lot of judgment that comes with domestic abuse. People are like, well, she gonna always go back. Well, he gonna always take her back. Or well, they always in and out all the time, right? But you have to show no judgment, and you have to be able to support them to the good and the bad. And you can't tell them you need to leave him. Let's leave him now. No, you can't force your own values and your own opinions on that victim. When it's time for them to go, they're going to go. And when they leave, you need to be that shelter and that sacred, safe space for them. That's all I could say. I know, that's helpful. Shelley, you're the expert with the coalition. Like, what do you advise your clients?
Like I said at the beginning, my whole thing is to get them to see themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so usually what I would say, I mean, and anybody that's been a person that's been in my office, right? Because I really hate labels. Any person that's been in my office or has had a conversation with me, because sometimes it's not even in my office. My line to them, Debbie, always is, I am here when you are ready.
Right.
Because they may give me all of this, and at the moment that they're talking to me, they're in a crisis.
Right.
But I also am a realist. I know if you've been in a relationship with somebody for 6 years, 10 years, 20 years,
Add children to
15
that.
years, you know what I mean? You have invested life. That's time, energy, body, money, emotions, non-emotions, everything that is your core, you've invested into that person. I can't expect you one day to just get up in the same mind frame, walk away from it. That would be me being ridiculous, right? That's not realistic. I have to wait until you're ready, because now that person has to, once they start getting information, right, that kind of confirms what they already feel, because other people should not be validation for you. right? If I have a feeling and I see this is what's going on, and you confirm it because you're seeing the same thing, what I've seen is makes it more credible for myself. Because remember, in an abusive relationship, you lose you, right? Men and women, especially children. You know what's proof of that? We had a whole woke movement, right? And I was like, do they realize that they're out here telling everybody they have no clue who they are, right? But not a lot of people saw it that way. I'm like, okay, we'll leave it alone.
They had a
You know,
what? A woke?
yeah, a woke movement, right? So everybody was starting to become aware of themselves. Well, if you're becoming aware of themselves, that means you didn't know who you were to begin with, right? And I was like, oh Lord, okay, let's move on.
Right. You're
But
right.
that's just it. And then the thing about it is community grooming, right? So that we have this bystander situation, this bystander issue that is really annoying, right? Like everybody knows something. Like the theme for this year for National Domestic Violence Coalition is everybody knows someone. Everyone knows someone.
Right.
Half the ones don't even want to say that there is the one, much less know someone. Because
Right.
community grooming is so amazing, right? Everybody thinks, oh, that person is so sweet. They'd never do nothing.
Right.
How you gonna say something like that about it? They'll never do this. Oh no. You know what irritates me?
That they master manipulators. They know how to show up in the wall.
They, no,
Wow.
they're not. They know how to show up in the world, but they've convinced people that if they be okay with their bad behavior, because that person has bad behavior too, because that's the thing that makes the community groomed, right? Meanwhile, you call me out, so me ain't gonna call you out, right? And that's why community grooming works, because everybody knows who to beat who and who to get beat. Everybody knows who to rape who and who to get raped, but ain't nobody saying nothing. It's gotten to the point where everybody knows who shoot who and nobody saying nothing, right? It just escalates. And it goes like that because from domestic violence, remember we were talking about earlier,
Okay,
the end
I know,
result
I know,
is the
catch who you
physical,
saying.
the
It took me a
physical
while to
abuse.
catch, but I catch it now. I'm catching it now. I'm catching it now. Yeah, I see
So
what you're saying.
community grooming happens like that. And it's like Karida said, you can help them to create a plan, but you got to wait until they're ready to put that plan in motion.
Right.
Because just because I vex with him today don't mean I want to leave him. It just means that most people don't want to leave the person that they're in a relationship with. They want to leave the behavior that the person has in the relationship, right? Because I don't want to think that I made a bad mistake in choosing an idiot, right? It's his behavior that I have a problem with. I want back the person I got into the relationship with, right? And so I'm waiting to see if this representative gonna represent again. But when they don't represent, and then I actually catch on to the fact that, hold on, but he consistent with his behavior, man.
Wow. That's
Like
so
this
true.
ain't changing.
That's
I
so
mean, like I'm doing everything. I'm sacrificing everything. I'm trying to do everything to prove my worth, and his behavior ain't changing. Okay, something wrong with this picture now. Because I've done everything, right? Now my behavior starting to change because of the effects of all the verbal, emotional, mental abuse that's been going on, right? So my behavior is changing. I'm turning into somebody that I don't recognize anymore because I so wanted to be the person that this partner of mine wanted that I ceased to exist. Now, when myself starts to come back up, and myself is like, yo, so what going on? We don't survive no more. We just gonna constantly be in survival crisis mode all the time. We ain't living. We ain't gonna enjoy nothing. We can't smile no more. The muscles in our jaw don't work. What going on? You know what I mean? And yourself starts to hit yourself. Literally, yourself starts to hit yourself. We don't like this. We don't like this. We don't like this. Yeah, so now you got blood pressure and you got blood sugar and you have end stage renal disease and you got cancer and you got heart palpitations and your leg them swelling up and all the rest of it because your body's like you got to stop. You're not paying attention. You got to stop, right? And then now when you're real sick and dying, that's usually when the change comes and they like, well, I want food, but you sick. Then you start to realize, oh, okay, for this is for real now. And then the getting ready starts to begin.
Mhm.
And I think too, one of the things that we also have to remember is that some domestic violence ends in death. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not just about just leaving the situation, or because what we might know is only maybe a tip of the iceberg of what's been going on, what's been said, what's been even tried. And so that person, that victim, and I'm sure this is for both men and women,
Mm-hmm.
knows that
Definitely.
if they make that move is going to mean
Definitely.
whole change of a whole lot of stuff, but it also
Right.
means safety. So
It also well actually, and this is the hard part, and this is the reason why I don't encourage people to leave until they're ready. When you are trying to get out of an abusive relationship, it becomes the most dangerous, right? Either physically dangerous, which is why we have a list of I think it's 59 people that are on our list that because we had Take Back the Night tonight, and we have I think 59 people on our list for St. Croix that have been killed due to domestic violence that we know of, right? Um, but it's most dangerous to leave, which is why, for me, it's essential that they be ready to step out. Because when I'm losing control and I don't want to lose control, remember we were talking earlier about how physical violence is the worst?
mhm,
That happens after all the other abuses doesn't work any longer. It gets to physical violence. Most abusers don't expect the victim to die,
mm,
right? They gonna shoot you, but because you've survived everything else, the reality of you being dead, in their head, they're like, I'm going to kill you because I'm at that rage. But most of them really don't because you've lived through everything.
Mhm.
You've lived through them stabbing you, they've lived through them shooting you before, they've lived through them gun
yeah,
butting you, they've been through them choking you, they lived through them tying you up and putting you in the closet. You've lived through everything, right? But
Wow.
one of the things that people do not realize is how easy it is to kill someone, right?
And a
Which is
fitted
why
ring. Yeah.
they have no clue, which is why I'm like, don't push nobody against
But
nothing because they hit the temple and against the side of the head, they're gonna die. But their intention really is just to get you back into control. So the intention is to get you to do what they want, right? They don't really want to kill you. They want you to do what they want. But if you're not doing it, then that's the option.
Hmm.
You know what I
that's
mean?
interesting.
The option is abuse into submission.
Right. And
Mm,
if you're not submitting, then I have to kill you. Right. And that's the
And and
mentality.
and I wanted to add for anybody who might find themselves in this situation, any form of abuse ends in a debt, whether it's a
Mhm.
physical debt or a
Emotional debt.
metaphoric debt.
Yep.
It's a
Exactly.
debt to self. If
Yep.
you do not come, how do we heal this? We heal it by empowering people, not just the abused. We heal by empowering our community because we don't know who is abused.
right.
We
Mhm.
cannot take the chances and criticize and put down and judge people. We have no idea why they're showing up this way in the world. And I always say this on LNE, like Rita was using the example about the girl with the high body count, right? We grew up in communities where we would call her a whore. And me and my
Right.
girlfriend had this argument the other day. I said, not because somebody got a high body count that make them a whore. You don't know what they've experienced
Still a
in life
call in
that
there.
causing them to
Right.
do this kind of thing. So what
Right.
I'm saying is We empower the community. We empower one another. Love and compassion. These things sounds like it's weak, but these are the most powerful tools we have. Because if somebody come to you, you see somebody, oh, I don't like your clothes. I don't like the way you don't wear your hair. I don't like watch how she carrying on. These things only break us down. So if you're there in a relationship where you've been abused and then you come out in your community and your friends and your family and everything doing the same thing, they're doing the same thing that the abuser is doing to you.
Right.
It's gonna end in a death. I don't care which one it is, whether it's physical or metaphor, somebody gonna die and it's going to be the self. Let us help one another. Go ahead, Corita.
You can't fix them either. You cannot fix them.
That's why we choose to love them.
People fix themselves. Other people can't fix other people. That person would need to have to fix themselves. And so sometimes some victims go into it like, okay, let me pray. Let me try to do this. Let me try to do that. And, if I can only fix him or her, then these things won't happen. Or, he's a broken, he came from a broken home, or she came from abusive family. So that's why she's so, aggressive, right? It could be true, but you can't fix it. That person is going to have to fix it for themselves.
One lesson I had to learn, and it's going to sound really bad, but one of the lessons I had to learn to tell myself is, I don't give a F. I had to tell myself, where you come from, where you experience, if you abusing me, I don't give a F. I'm not going to let you abuse me no more. I don't care where you come from. You got to deal with you. Like you said, I can't fix you because I was in the fixing business. They used to say that I had the Messiah complex. I want to save the world. Yeah. Yep. So I had to put the Messiah complex to death. I had to say, you know what? Christ went to the cross for you and me, and you still turn out the way you did. And so now you're going to do me this, and I don't give a F. You got to go your way, and I got to go mine. And I can't fix the wall. I just got to fix Pinky. And that was the best thing I ever said to myself. I don't give a F. Like, everybody do what they want to do, and I'm going to do what I have to do. It sounds terrible, but you have to take a stance for yourself. You have to fight for yourself. Yeah.
And I also want to add, like, for the men in our community, right? And our boys in our community. Sometimes society makes them believe like it's a manly thing to take a punch, right? Or to take a slap, or whatever is the case. You're a victim. You need to understand that you're a victim and you have rights too. You need to be supportive. You need to be protected. Even as a male, you need to be protected as well. So if you are abused, you have to say something. You have to protect yourself by reaching out and getting help, because there's so many men in this society that were like, no one's going to believe me. There's so many men who are raped. No one's going to believe me, right? Or if they believe me, they think that they're going to automatically be condemned as being gay or homosexual, right? And I'm so sick of the whole, if we teach our daughters how to dress appropriately, if we teach our sons how to act appropriately, how about we teach people to not hurt people? How about we teach people to keep their hands to themselves? How about we teach the boys to see a beautiful young lady in a really nice outfit that's showing all her nice asses and curves and just say, lady, you look beautiful today. Instead of manhandling her and God only knows what else, right? But we really need to reach out to the men. I hope there's some men listening. If you're not being abused, but you know somebody who is, please give them the encouragement and speak victory into them and let them know that there's a community that knows that men are being abused.
Yep, they are.
It's help for you.
Yeah, let me add to that.
Girls and the women, and we
come on up by the office.
Victims too.
I have a lot of male victims. I have a lot of male
victims that come to my office. Let me add to that too, because thanks to technology and social media, I don't know if you guys talked about the influence of social media on many levels. It could be good and bad because you're seeing it more prevalent now where people are actually recording when they're being in abusive situations.
Mhm.
Right.
So people are putting that out. So, and of course, that's really and truly at the end of the day, that's not for, I don't think it's for display. I think it's more for evidence than anything. Because when you call the
Mhm.
cops, you need to be able to show the cops, look, this is what's going on, because it's,
Mhm.
honestly, I'm going to be honest with you, 9 out of 10 times, cops always side with the females. That's just the law always goes in favor of the female. We all know that. We all know that. But you'll see situation, I've seen this before, where men are actually recording themselves with these women just going buck wild on them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's
I
definitely
saw
like
something on Facebook where a woman was beating a
that's what
man
I'm saying.
and
Yeah. So
dragging him in the bush. I couldn't even watch it no more. It was going around. Why she was doing this? Because he cheated on her. And who sent it out was like people were cheering her on for beating him because he cheated.
well, I've seen that
I had to turn it
when
off.
men are trying to just leave the relationship.
Right.
Listen, and they're saying, listen, I can't do this with you no more. I'm out, and they're
I'm
just
done.
physically abusing. Yeah, they're
Right.
just going full. So yeah, yes, Karina, it definitely happened. I'm glad that you mentioned that. And
And
before, because I know we kind of pressed for time now, we actually got over the limit. I know Debbie want to wrap this up, so I'm glad that you brought that in on the end. So that was a good point.
And
Debbie,
I
you can go ahead.
really, I really would, to add to what Karida said, right? The community grooming thing, please, please stop saying that there are no good men. The more you say there are no good men, the more they're going to start to act like they ain't no good because it's verbally abusive. So don't say it. They got some phenomenal men in our community. And nobody wants to believe that they're good men because everybody has been hurt by somebody and blame everybody for it. Get out of your past relationship.
Mhm.
Get into your present relationship and see the person in front of you. Do not see the person that you left when you're within a relationship with somebody new, because that doesn't make any sense,
Mhm.
right? Because you're setting yourself up to get hurt.
Right.
Yep.
I'm done.
That's a good that's a good thing to say
You
because
have to believe in a possible dream, people.
It's not the impossible
it's
dream.
I'm
not
You
the
gotta believe.
joking.
It's not the impossible dream. You
I
have
am
to.
joking.
I know
No,
you're
no,
joking.
no, no, Shelly. For some
Mhm.
people, it is an impossible dream because they have never met a decent man in their life, right?
But
Yep.
that's what I'm
So,
saying.
so to
They're
believe it for
still in
some
the
people,
relationship
Mhm.
with the past.
Mhm.
Got to get out of that because you may
right?
have a good man in front of you. But if you're not in a relationship with the man in front of you, but in your memory of the people that you've been with, he's never going to be a good man
Mhm.
because he isn't even the person you're in a relationship with. But that's a different story for another day. Like Louis said, I'm pretty sure we're over the time.
yeah. Yeah. Again, for me, it is truly about us. I'm always saying legacy building and changing generational thoughts and processes. Um, we really have to teach one another and encourage each other to value ourselves.
Mhm.
Um, because at the end of the day, these different forms of abuse are going to be there. But the way that it has to change is, number one, we have to start from our homes. I say it all the time. We talk about romantic relationships a lot. That's what we talk about. But a lot of these romantic relationships are affected by the first relationships we've had, right? And so a lot of things can be corrected if we start from now, right? Um,
I
by
guess.
encouraging, supporting one another. It doesn't make sense to bash people. I think there was a post that went up, something about you can love people, you just don't have to give them access, right? And so we can still do things in a loving fashion.
Right.
Um, and so we have to really be, again, intentional about what we do if we want to show up differently and we want different outcomes.
Mhm.
And so this is such like a broad topic.
Mhm.
but it literally infiltrates everything in our lives. I hear. So I just want those
Oh,
people
okay.
out there that are either in a domestic violence situation, are seeing domestic violence situations within their families and their friends, to just let people know that they are valued, that you'll help them, that there's many resources. They just need to seek them out when they're ready to be out of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But in honor of, we always give these things a month. We just need to stay in the forefront of this, because this is the only way that we can change our communities, again, by having these conversations and being supportive of one another in a positive light. So I thank you guys, as always, for always being here ready to have these conversations. An hour and a half is definitely not enough time,
Not enough.
but at least it opens doors, it opens perspectives, it opens conversation, and hopefully the healing that needs to take place so that we can be better people. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
your love and supported community.
yes. Thank you guys.
And we'll have to have you back on again. I mean, it's a month and we only got 2 more weeks left in the month. I don't know if it'll be this month or so, but we'll figure it out, because like she said, it's a broad topic. It's a lot to talk about, and an hour and a half cannot address it. But at the end, we're trying, and we just want to give hope, because we know for sure there are people right now being abused. There is no question about it. We know it for sure. And so we want you to know that you're not alone. There is people out there who cares, and there's people out there who is willing to help. Like Corita says, come up with a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Know that that you may not know your value, but know that you are valuable, and that you have something to say and contribute to this world.
Mm-hmm.
Know that, and just start there. Just start there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you guys. Everybody, please be safe.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Spread the word.
Yes.
You
And we
see
will be
something,
back.
say something. Let's push policy as well. We need to hold our policymakers, our judges, our prosecutors accountable for things that happen, because the justice system is also failing our victims as well. But that's a whole nother story. But yeah, the justice system also fails our victims. Okay, yeah. So, but there's resources out there. There are organizations out there, and like before we go, I put in the chat, in the comment section, the number for the national hotline, which is 1-800-799-7233, and you can also text all caps START START to 88788. It's in the comment section down below, guys.
Yeah, and we're gonna also put it on our page as well. Thank you guys. Be well. We'll see you back here next week. And for anybody who's interested with going on our Panama adventure trip, Saturday is the last day to get your feet in, to hold your spot. So see you guys next week.
All right,
bye. Have a good night. Be safe.
Good night.
Good night.
Take care.
Be safe.